So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a basic bird pattern. Now these 5 different birds are all made using the same exact pattern with just minor differences. So for example, you have this cute little hummingbird, right? Same body, same wings, different position. The only difference is probably the beak, and the beak is made up of a nice long chain of stitches, however long you want it to be, and then an overlap of single crochets all the way back and then woven into the face to hold its position. The other kind of variation I can quickly tell you about is this cute, kind of goofy looking princess chicken. And for the comb, what I've done is I have simply single crocheted 3 or 4 chains, and then I single crocheted it again. So a single crochet to anchor it in, 3 or 4 chains, and a single crochet. Then 3 or 4 more chains and single crochet in the next stitch. And of course I did that also the same on the other side, the other panel of the bird's body. And once sewn together, gives this fun little chicken comb. And then I added just a bit of lace to give it that tiara look. Also, another thing is this budgie, or parakeet as we like to call them here in the States. And its beak is a little different in that I simply have a triangle shaped piece of fabric I crocheted. I ran a couple of straight stitches across the top of the beak, and now I have a wonderful little parakeet. So in this video, I'm basically going to show you how to make a bird that looks like this. However, with a couple of changes, whether it be with regards to the placement of the eyes or the shape of the beak, or maybe 1 or 2 other embellishments you might add to your fun feathered friend, you could have a completely different looking bird, all from one basic pattern. So let's give a warm welcome to all my Weaving Weird siblings, weirdlings, and just fun people. For those of you who aren't in the know, my name is Sig. I'm a retired tattoo artist turned active fiber artist and crocheter. And here on my channel, you and I get to create a little magic with every knot. So don't forget to hit the subscribe and like buttons. This doesn't cost you anything except for maybe a second of your time, but it does help me provide you with regular tutorials featuring original designs, classic patterns, and lacy motifs. This happens to be a classic pattern. And as usual, I am always interested in your feedback, so feel free to leave your comments and questions below. Now for this week's demonstration, I'm going to be using 2 different colorways of a weight 1, in this case sock yarn. This is a super fine yarn. I'm going to be using a size 4 or a 2.5 millimeter hook, a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle, and some little safety eyes. Now, as mentioned before, you can use any size or weight yarn that you prefer, pretty much any kind of yarn that you prefer, whether it's straight worsted yarn or some kind of a novelty yarn. This is a very flexible pattern. So I'm going to begin with this by making a chain of 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I'm going to join in that first chain to create a ring. I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Now this 3 chain is going to stand in as my first double crochet. So now I want to double crochet 15 more double crochets in this ring. And when I've finished, I will have a total count of 16. So we got the 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5. Now that I've completed my count of 16, I'm going to go ahead and in the 3rd chain of the first 3 chain stitch, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slip stitch, basically join. And then I'm going to chain 3. So 1, 2, and 3. Now, in the next stitch, I want to make a double crochet. And then stitch after that, I'm going to make a half double crochet. And then next I want to make 2 single crochets, 1 in each stitch. So that's 1 and then 2. Next I want to make a half double crochet. Then I want to make a double crochet and 1 more double crochet. So at this point I have completed round 1, and then with step 2 we're moving into rows. So I'm just going to call this row 2 just to stay consistent with the basic count of this bird because it's so small, or basic is probably a better word to use for it. So next I'm going to turn my work, and to begin row 3 I'm going to chain 1. Now from here on in, when you make a single crochet, what you're going to want to do is do a yarn under. So for row 3 I want 8 single crochets, and unless otherwise stated, I'm always going to start this project with the first stitch in the turning stitch of the last row. So this is going to be my first single crochet, yarn under, second single crochet, yarn under, so on and so forth. Third single crochet, yarn under. Seven and 8. I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to begin row 4. Now for row 4, what I want to do is I want to chain 1, then I want to single crochet 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7. Then in that last stitch, I want to increase. So basically, I'm going to place 2 single crochets into that last stitch. And that'll give me a total count of 9 for row 4. Next, I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to begin row 5. For row 5, I'm simply going to single crochet 9. So 1 and 9. I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to begin row 6. Now for row 6, what I want to do is I want to increase in this first stitch. So 1 and 2, my increase. Then I'm going to single crochet 8. 1, 2, 7. My last stitch is the 8th single crochet. Then I turn my work. I'm going to chain 1. Now for row 7, I'm going to single crochet a total of 10 single crochets to complete row 7. So 1, 2. So now that I've completed row 7, I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to increase in that first stitch. So 1 and 2. And then I'm going to finish out this row with a count of 9 single crochets. 1 and 9. So that's going to give me a total count of 11 for row 8. So I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to chain 1. And for row 9, I'm going to begin by skipping this very first stitch, and then I'm going to single crochet 10 in the next 10 stitches. So 1, 2, 9, and 10. I'm going to turn my work and begin row 10. Now for row 10, I want to begin with an increase. So 1 and 2, that gives me my increase in the first stitch. Then I'm going to single crochet 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then once I've completed my 7 single crochets, I'm now going to decrease. So it's going to be a single crochet decrease. For those of you who don't know, I'm going to pull up a loop in the next stitch, and then I'm going to pull up a loop in the stitch after that. So now I have 3 loops on my hook, and then I'm going to close it with basically how I would normally finish off a single crochet, but instead I've done 2 single crochets together. So that's my decrease. I'm going to turn my work, and then I'm going to chain 1. And then for row 11, I'm simply going to go ahead, I'm going to skip that first stitch, and then I'm going to single crochet 9 to complete the row. So 1, 2, next I'm going to turn my work, I'm going to chain 1, and for row 12, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to increase in that first stitch. So 1 and 2. Then I'm going to single crochet 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Next, I'm going to decrease. So that'll be my first and then my second. There, close through, 3 loops on my hook, and then yarn under and pull that all the way through to complete row 12. And I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to begin row 13. Now for row 13, I'm simply going to skip that first stitch, and then I'm going to single crochet 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So you should have a piece that's beginning to look something like this. Next, I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to begin row 14. So for row 14, what I want to do is I want to single crochet 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then I want to increase. So 2 single crochets into the next stitch. So 1 and 2. And then what I want to do is I want to skip this next stitch, and in the stitch after that, I want to place a slip stitch. Just like so. Now at this point, I'm going to do what I call as a pivot. So it's not really a turn, but it's more a pivot, because now we're going to start working up the edging of the piece. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a slip stitch. And then in the next stitch, or in this case, the next row, because each stitch is going to be represented by each row, basically going up the edge, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place a single crochet. And then in the stitch after that, I'm going to place an increase. So 1 and then 2. And then I'm going to make a single crochet twice. So once and then twice. I work my way up this edging. And then after that, in the next stitch, I want to make an increase. So 1 and 2 in that same stitch. Then after that, I want to make 4 single crochets. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then in the next stitch, I want to increase. So 1 and 2. Then I have a single crochet right here in row 3. So now as I work my way up this double crochet in row 2, I want to work 2 single crochets into that. So I'm going to place my first single crochet and then my second single crochet. And then the next single crochet I'm going to put right in this stitch where the double crochet and the double crochet from the first round meet. So right in there. Then I'm going to make a single crochet in the next stitch. In the stitch after that, I'm going to place an increase. Then I'm going to place a single crochet in the next 2 stitches. So 1 and 2. And then the next stitch I'm going to increase. So 1, 2 in the same stitch. I'm going to single crochet 2 times, so once, and then the stitch after that, another one. And then in the next stitch, I'm going to place another increase. Now from this point, I should be right where my round 1 meets my first 3 chain stitch in my round 2, or row 2 rather. So from this point on to the end of the back, I'm going to evenly disperse 15 single crochets. So 1. Now I'm at my last stitch, which is going to be 15. Then I'm going to move on to the next step, and that's going to be a chain of 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to single crochet in the second chain from the hook. So that's going to be 1. And then in the next chain, I'm going to place a single crochet. It'll be 2. Now in that last chain, I'm going to place a half double crochet. So now you should have something that looks like this. Next, I'm going to single crochet 6. So beginning right here in this stitch, I'm going to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. In that next stitch, I'm going to place an increase. So I've got 1 and 2. And then last but not least, I'm simply going to fasten off with a slip stitch. And then that's all there is to it for side A. Now let me go ahead and show you how to do side B. This will be pretty quick because there's really just a little bit of a trick to it. I'm going to go ahead and again, I'm going to chain 4 just like before, and I'm going to make my ring just like before. So basically, I'm going to follow the same instructions I did for round 1 of side A. So now I've got my chain 3 and I need to double crochet 15 more into the ring. So now that I have a total count of 16 stitches, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to join with a slip stitch, and then I'm going to chain 3. And then just like before with side A, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a double crochet in the next stitch. Then I'm going to place a half double crochet in the stitch after that. Then I'm going to place a single crochet in the stitch after that and another single crochet in the stitch after that. Next, I'm going to make a half double crochet. And then I'm going to finish off with 1 double crochet and then 2 double crochets, giving me a total of 8 stitches across. Now, this is where things differ just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fasten off right here. So normally what I would do is, like with the side A, you're here, you finished your row 2, then you're going to turn your work and you're going to begin here with row 3. Well, for side B, what I want to do is I want to fasten off my work at row 2, and then I want to pick up at row 3. So what I want to do is I want to pick up in that first 3 chain stitch and begin row 3 right here. So I'm going to begin my row 3 as I did with side 1 with a count of 8. And I'm going to continue just as I did with side 1. So just repeat what you did with side 1, continuing from row 3 on through. And what that'll give you is, when you've completed it, you will now have a side B that is a pretty good mirror for side 1. So basically what you're going to have are 2 right sides of your work facing outwards once everything is finished. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish side B. You can go ahead and finish side B as well, and I will meet you right back here. So now once I've finished side B, my wrong side looks like this, and then this is going to be the right side of my work. And you can see how it faces the right side of side A. And then now is actually a good time to start considering your embellishments. So, for example, if I'm going to put in my eyes, now is a good time to put them in place. So they're either going to go into the center of each head, or if I'm going to have the bird in a facing position, I'm going to set my eyes on either side of this round 1. However, since this bird is going to be a side-facing bird, I'm going to want to place my eyes in the center of round 1 on each side. But before I do that, I'm going to move on to making the beak. Also keep in mind that I'm going to leave myself enough of a tail so that I can sew these 2 pieces together. So for this particular piece, I'm going to use the same colorway that I'm using for the wings. I'm going to use this on the beak. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for where round 1 meets row 2 right here. And then I'm going to find where I have that first increase. And that is where I'm going to start my beak. So I'm going to come right in here. I'm going to tie in my new yarn. And then I'm going to chain 3. So 1, 2, and 3. Next, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a single crochet into the second chain from the hook. And then I'm going to make a double crochet into the next chain. Just like so. I'm going to skip this next single crochet, and in the single crochet after that, I'm going to make a slip stitch. And then I'm going to cut off and fasten off. So that's going to be my first beak on the side A. And then here for side B, I'm pretty much going to do the same thing. So really, I'm just going to kind of flip my work to where the back side of this piece is facing me. I'm going to follow the same instructions where round 1 meets round 2. I'm going to go up that side and find where my first increase happens, and then I'm going to insert my hook into that second single crochet of the first increase. And like before, I'm going to take my yarn. I'm going to tie in. Then I'm going to chain 3. I'm going to single crochet in that first, or rather second chain from the hook. And then I'm going to place a double crochet into the next chain. I'm going to skip the next single crochet, and then the single crochet after that I'm going to tie in with a slip stitch. Now this time I'm going to leave myself a tail long enough for sewing. So now if I have my 2 pieces facing each other, it's going to look something like this. And then of course, like I've got this little bit of tail here, I'm either going to cut it off or weave it in so that it hides from the front facing work. And when I say front facing, I'm actually talking about the front facing piece of round 1. Everything else just falls into place. You'll see what I'm talking about if you're at all confused at this point. Okay, so I did go ahead and I used that bit of tail that I had for the beak to go ahead and whip stitch the beak closed on my bird. Now I'm going to pretty much do the same thing. I'm going to take the tail that I had from side B of my bird, just tuck that in, line up my stitches, and I'm going to just start working my way around. Also, as I work my way around, I'm going to stuff a little bit. It's not going to take much stuffing, but when I get to a point where I think it's about a good time to start stuffing this bird, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to end up closing and weaving in my tail. Worked all the way around and I've gotten to the beak. So basically all I'm going to do at this point is I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of weave this through the back of my work and then bring that needle right out here at the bottom of the beak. And so you just want to make sure that your yarn doesn't get hung up on the backings of your safety eyes if you chose to do safety eyes. And then now I'm going to pick up with my whip stitch and I'm going to continue to sew till I'm about here, and that's when I'm going to stuff my bird. That's when I think it's a good time for me to start the stuffing process. Now once you've stuffed your bird and sewn everything together, you're going to have something that looks similar to this. Now let's move on to the wings. We're going to have wing A and wing B. So now I have the colorway for the wings I'm going to be using. As you can tell, this bird does not take very much yarn. It's a great stash buster. If you're looking for some little cute kind of accessory. So basically I'm going to begin by making a chain of 2. Now in the second chain from my hook, I'm going to single crochet 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to join into that first single crochet, and that's going to be my first round. Now for my second round, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to place an increase in each one of those stitches. So for round 2, I'm going to end up with a count of 12 single crochets. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6, 11, and 12. So that's my first 2 rounds, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to join into that first single crochet. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 3. So 1, 2, and 3. And in the next stitch, I'm going to place a half double crochet. And in the stitch after that, I'm going to place a single crochet. Now in the stitch after that, I'm going to make an increase. So 1 single crochet and then 2 single crochets into the same stitch. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a single crochet in the stitch after that. Then in the stitch after that, I'm going to place a half double crochet. And then in the stitch after that, I am going to make a double crochet. I'm going to turn my work and going to begin row 4. So we have round 1, round 2, and row 3 completed. Now we're moving on to row 4. I'm going to chain, and then I'm going to make 8 single crochets across to complete row 4. So 1 and 8. Now for row 5, I'm going to begin with my chain 1, and then I'm going to single crochet 3. So 1, 2, 3. In the next stitch, I'm going to increase. So 1 and 2. And then I'm going to single crochet 2. So 1, 2. That leaves me with 2 stitches left, and at this point I'm going to decrease. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my work and I'm going to chain 1 to begin my row 6. Now for row 6, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to make a single crochet into that very first stitch. Then I'm going to skip a stitch and I'm going to place 4 double crochets into the stitch after that. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I've made a bit of a scallop or a fan. I'm going to skip this next stitch and I'm going to single crochet in the stitch after that. Then I'm going to skip the next stitch and I am going to place 4 double crochets into the stitch after that. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I'm going to place a single crochet in this very last stitch. So now your work should look something similar to this. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to start row 7. Now for row 7, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chain 3. So 1, 2, and 3. Then in that same stitch that I chained my 3 from, I'm going to make a double crochet. Just like that. I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to come here to the next single crochet right here, sort of in the middle. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place a double crochet into that stitch. And then I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to place another double crochet into that same stitch. Next, I'm going to make another chain. And I'm going to skip the next 2 double crochets. And in that third double crochet right here, I'm going to make a single crochet. Now I'm going to turn my work and I'm going to begin row 8. And for row 8, what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to come right here to this second chain 1 space. So I'm going to skip the first chain 1 space. I'm going to come here to the second chain 1 space. And I'm going to double crochet 4 double crochets into that space. Okay, so you have something that looks like this. Then I'm going to single crochet into the next chain 1 space. And then I'm going to place 2 double crochets into that third chain of the 3 chain stitch. So I've got 1 and then 2. And then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to slip stitch right here into the same stitch. Then I'm going to chain 1. And then next what I'm going to do is I'm going to single crochet 8 single crochets along the top of my wing. I'm going to have 1, 2, 7, 8. And then right here in the next stitch, which is going to be this stitch right here at the end of my wing, sort of at what you might consider like a shoulder, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to single crochet 2 into the same stitch. An increase is basically what I'm doing. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a slip stitch. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut myself a long enough tail for sewing. And now I have my first wing, wing 1. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do wing 2. And basically it's going to be kind of similar to the way we did the body. So let me just show you real quick on where you need to pivot for that. So again, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to chain 2, so 1 and 2. And then in the second chain from my hook, I'm going to single crochet 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. As before, I'm going to join. And then I'm going to place an increase in each one of those stitches. So for round 2, I end up with 12. So 1, 2. Okay, so now I have 12 single crochets, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to join right there at that first single crochet of round 2. I'm going to make a chain. And so normally, as I did with wing 1, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chain my 3. So 1, 2, 3 for the beginning of round 3. And instead of going from right to left, just as I'm holding with the front side or the right side of the work facing me, I am going to just simply turn my work so that the wrong side is facing me. And then I'm going to continue with rounds 3 through 8 plus that additional pivot part on the end, just as I did before. So to complete wing 2, you're simply going to continue following the instructions from row 3 through row 8 plus the pivot. Except instead of having the front side facing you, you're going to have the wrong side or the back side of your work facing you. Okay, I'll let you to it, and I will meet you right back here in just one moment to show you what the bird looks like once everything is all sewn together. So now, of course, you're going to sew your wings on wherever and however you like, because that is really pretty much the name of my channel, is I give you the basic instructions. And if you follow my instructions, you can get a pretty decent little piece out of the mix. If you decide to go your own way, I set things up in a way that allows you to do that too, because I want to encourage you to be as creative as you want to or as you are able to with these pieces. All right, now, thank you for joining me this week. I was so glad to have you aboard, and I'm excited to see you next week. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye now.